Hello and welcome to the Rabyd Atheist. I'm Rabyd, a former pastor turned atheist, now compassionate anti-theist. Welcome to my channel. Feel free to like or dislike the video as you see fit, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you'd subscribe to the channel and hit your notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos as much as you like because the purpose of this channel is educational in regards to atheist and deconversion issues and any issues related to those issues. A hearty shout out to the Rabyd Nation. Join the nation by hitting that subscribe button, and if you want to support the channel in a more tangible way, hit that join button and your membership options for citizenship in the Rabyd Nation will be presented to you. Today I want to continue on our Tuesday Bible study series on when God kills, and I want to take on the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is found in Genesis 18 and 19. Now, I've already kind of touched on Sodom and Gomorrah with Lot and his daughters fairly recently in this Bible study series, so I'll link that up above my head and in the description as well, in case you want to take a look at that. But the story of this, and I'm going to summarize, you certainly can stop the video, go read the story for yourself, and then come back to the video. But basically, God shows up on Abraham's doorstep, in front of his tent, with two angel escorts. These will be the same two angels that end up going to Sodom and Gomorrah and protecting Lot and, becoming all a part of the controversy that happens later. But God shows up, sits down, Abraham, serves him, consents that he's somebody important or God himself, and so he brings out the best and, serves God and so on and so forth. Now, the atmosphere and the tone of this passage of Abraham's response to God is very much like ancient people would genuflect and fawn over all the great kings like the Persian or Babylonian emperors. It's like they're going into the throne room and absolutely prostrating themselves and, oh, great, whatever. The imagery is very much like what would happen if that kind of king visited a regular person. This is what these people would do. Okay, so God kind of is talking to Abraham and debates with himself a little bit, but then finally decides to tell Abraham what he's going to do to Sodom and Gomorrah because it's become a great and exceedingly wicked city, and the cries have come up to him, and he has decided to destroy both cities, like he's going to destroy them, wipe them off the map. And Abraham, in his human compassion, decides to talk God down a little bit and gets away with it because he says, what if there's 50 righteous in the city? Well, I won't destroy the city for 50 righteous sake. And then 40, then 30, then 20, then 10. Okay, so it's kind of like he brings God down. So if there's even 10 righteous in the city, he's going to spare the city. And then at that point, the story shifts to the two angels entering Sodom and Gomorrah. We have the whole lot. The men come, surround the house, and say, we want to know these men. And that's more of a reference to sexual activity. And then, of course, the angels protect Lot, get everybody out, tell him to flee the city. Lot, his wife, and his two daughters flee the city. Lot's wife decides to turn around and look as the city is being destroyed, and she gets turned into a pillar of salt. Basically, God rains down fire and brimstone on both cities, wiping them completely off the map and destroying them. And then, of course, the whole thing with Lot and his daughters takes place. Okay, that's kind of, I think, a brief summary of it. And so the question is, well, gee, Ed, here's a story of God actually doing something about evil and unrighteousness, and you're being critical of him killing everybody. Yeah, I am, and I'm going to tell you why. Number one, if we're going to sit there and talk about an all-powerful God, there are tons of different ways where he could have gotten rid of the unrighteous of the city without destroying everything. Okay, God seems to really, in the Bible, have this cataclysmic, I want to destroy things in such a way that not only do people, get destroyed, but it's just a horrible, terrible way to do things. And, God, and terrifying. Okay, God seems to want to invoke a lot of fear. He wants to invoke, this is really a don't become worse or I will nuke you kind of attitude. Don't mess with me or I will kill you. Live righteously, live the way I want to, or I will destroy you. Becomes the real clear message that God has. But I also can think of 100 different ways that God could have handled this. One, apparently God isn't really all that convinced of his own persuasive powers, that if he showed up in Sodom and Gomorrah himself and started to talk to the people that he was God and they were living a wicked life, he doesn't, he can change the heart of Pharaoh later. He obviously has the power to persuade. I mean, he is God, so he has all knowledge and all power in the story. So wouldn't he be able to convince the people that he is God and they need to repent? But he doesn't even give Sodom and Gomorrah an offer of repentance. He just decides to destroy them. Now, because Sodom and Gomorrah are wicked, he talks about the cries coming up from the city. Well, that's the cries of the innocent being, harmed or whatever by the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. So something's happening there where Sodom and Gomorrah probably, at this time, almost all cultures use slavery. And so there's definitely slaves that are being victimized. There are innocent children in these cities. There's infants. There's pregnant women. The idea that everybody was wicked is kind of really weird, because we're kind of basically saying that everybody in these two cities had to be free will agents and they were all evil, okay, except for Lot and his family, okay, which amounts to 4 people. So it's not the 10 that's needed to spare the city. So it's like God already doesn't have a problem in the discussion with Abraham of killing the innocent righteous or the righteous along with the guilty. That's not a very good sense of justice, in my opinion. Okay, from my opinion, you punish the guilty and you leave the innocent alone. Okay, that's a better standard of justice. But God doesn't seem to have that view. He could literally cause every evil person in Sodom and Gomorrah to have a heart attack and die, and leave all the righteous and the innocent alive to rebuild that society, rebuild the city in a sense, but he destroys the city too. So all that infrastructure, all the stuff that was keeping people alive, completely destroyed as well. So nobody can use it. And it's like God has the ancient king mentality of doing something in such a way that it creates an example so that other people fear to do whatever those people did again. Now, fear, I suppose, is a great motivator, but when we look at the overall tenor of God and when people try to make an apology for some of the parts of the story, they kind of go for God being, this righteous judge, but, he can do what he wants. Now, from my perspective, the innocent should have factored into this discussion, and God doesn't seem to care if there's even 10 righteous in there. He's going to nuke them right along with it. Let's say there had been 9, and, he's not trying to get Lot and his family out. Okay, well, they're still going to die. So the idea here is to present the people of Sodom and Gomorrah as so wicked that they were completely deserving of being completely destroyed by fire. Fire and brimstone rain out of heaven, and man, game over. Okay. The whole tone between God and Abraham is very much of an ancient king where he has to genuflect. He's a God king. This is how people acted. And I have a real problem with that, because basically God is always asking his people to fawn all over him like he is some sort of God king. The king of Persia in the movie 300 is am I not a generous God, to allow you to live? And that's kind of his tone when he's talking to him. Am I not generous that I'm allowing the city to survive even though there's only 10 righteous? It's like, aren't I great? Okay. And I also have the final criticism of this is, well, not the final one, but because I want to talk about Lot's wife here for a minute too later in a few seconds. But is this the only solution that God can come up with? We have this awesome, totally omniscient, all wise, all loving creator, but the best he can do is nuke them till they glow. That doesn't show a lot of creativity on God's part. what it shows is the expectations that people had out of people in authority and power, that they could literally do anything they wanted. It's very much a might makes right morality. They don't question their kings or people in authority because whatever they do is right. And so that's kind of where this imagery of God is. When you start to study God as a character of literature, he comes off as quite unpleasant. He's not really a good guy, okay? He's just God. And he tends to do what he wants to. Sure, sometimes he does some things that seem to be beneficial. There's a lot of times that he's like this story about Sodom and Gomorrah. My only solution seems to be destroy things. And then we get to Lot's wife, and this points to another unjust aspect of God. Okay, the high crime that Lot's wife commits is she hears all the destruction and death behind her and turns around and takes a look. That's it. And for that ultimate crime, simply because she disobeyed something as simple as looking at something, she gets killed. Okay, basically, she's turned into a pillar of salt, which I assume was fatal, and she, is left there as a marker, so to speak, for everybody else to follow. But here's my thing about that: wouldn't it have been more fitting to blind her? Okay, to say, hey, I told you not to look back, and then leave her as an example, and then she could have told her own story as a warning to other people. But this really kind of says something else about God. God doesn't seem to really care about people. All he cares about is obedience. He wants abject, complete obedience, or I'm going to destroy you, or I'm going to punish you. And so I don't know. When I look at how God does things, he seems to be very eager in the Old Testament, and I've already pointed out also in the New, he kills in a very similar way with Ananias and Sapphira, just on a lesser scale. His answer always seems to be, I've got to kill these people. I can't convince them. I can't argue with them. I can't demonstrate my power in some other way. I've just got to destroy them. And so it really paints a really bad picture of God. But I'd be interested in hearing all your notes in the comments. This is a pretty lengthy little bit of a story here. But my objections continue to remain. There's probably innocent people in this story. I mean, if they're both great cities, I know a lot of people say, well, one city was all lesbians and the other ones were all gay people. And, this is why God, but the text doesn't actually say that. It just says that they were wicked. And the only example we have of homosexuality is the men surrounding Lot's home. Doesn't mean that everybody was like that. And these societies tended to be built on slavery. Those slaves would have been destroyed along with everybody else. But I guess, in God's economy, those people don't factor in. You're going to have young children running around. You're going to have pregnant women, infants. All of these people were killed as well. But God doesn't seem to care about that. All he's looking at is righteousness. Well, I don't even have 10 righteous in the city according to what I think is righteous, so therefore they're destroyed. That's his own demarcation. There's not other factors that enter into God's economy. Lot's wife points to the injustice of God. All she did is look back, and that's deserving of a death sentence. He doesn't even do that in the later law, so there's an inconsistency there in God's justice. And so, I don't know, the character of God in the Old Testament, the more we study him in this Bible study series, the more we really see that he's not exactly the greatest of characters. And so, I don't know, the people that wrote this book were obviously genuflecting to somebody, and it was probably the Babylonian and Persian kings, letting them know that they absolutely were all a part of what they were doing. Well, that's it for today. I appreciate every like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you comment below today, anything or thoughts on it. That's the purpose of this Bible study, to give you your own thoughts about it and give you a voice for those. So be sure to do that. And as always, live your best life. You only get one go around, so don't waste it on the trappings of religion and faith, but rather give it to your friends, your family, and to make this a better world. I am sure you'll be very happy, much, much more happier if you do so. I speak from experience. And as always, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time.